millions of dollars lost, panned by the audience and critics, illegal wiretapping, FBI and federal charges, prison and bankruptcy. This is the story of Rollerball.
It's time to play Rollerball!
John McTiernan is an American film director born in 1951.
Part of the process of teaching myself to work was that I'd made up movies on the back of my eyelids, long before I ever shot them.
Now, you may not recognize his name now, but in the late 80s, he was the GOAT, making the original Predator one of the best action movies of all time.
Get to the chopper!
Nominated for an Oscar, a classic that launched a massive media franchise with multiple films, novels, toys, comics, and video games.
You son of a bitch!
But then we had the ultimate Christmas movie, the first Die Hard.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
And again, it was a massive success that spurred many sequels and is considered one of the greatest action films ever. The other notable one was The Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery.
New Paroski.
My childhood favorite, Last Action Hero. We had the third Die Hard with a Vengeance, or 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, now a cult classic. As we can see, McTiernan was one of the most applauded and successful directors. The only way was up. But then, Rollerball happened. What is Rollerball? Now, to answer that question, we have to go back to ancient history, the 70s.
Jonathan E., that's the name. Houston players come and go, but the champion plays on.
Directed by Canadian filmmaker Norman Jewison, known for cult classics like the musical Fiddler on the Roof.
If I were a rich man.
Rollerball is a science fiction movie presenting a dystopian future featuring this sort of gladiatorial style sport created by ruling corporations. Death Race 2000 from 1975 had a similar premise.
The year 2000. America is a vast speedway. People line the streets to witness the greatest drivers on Earth in a race from sea to shining sea.
And I guess we can also put Mad Max and Escape from New York into a similar category.
I told you I wasn't a fool, Pliskin.
Call me Snake.
You know, these brutal, tongue-in-cheek movies about the future and the downfall of civilization. Well, they got some of it right, didn't they? At the beginning of the 2000s, it was decided that John McTiernan would remake the original 1975 Rollerball. The remake, which had a production budget of around $17 million, was supposed to follow the same premise as the original Rollerball. You know, the political and social commentary set in this dystopian future. Like, it seemed easy. They had Chris Klein, who was riding on the American Pie fame.
Chris.
Oh, you call me Alice if you want.
Do I have to?
Jean Reno, and even cameos from Pink and Slipknot. The problem started early. McTiernan disagreed with producer Charles Rowan, who produced movies like the Dark Knight trilogy and Man of Steel, about the direction of the new Rollerball. Now, apparently the original script was more in line with the 1975 movie, but still, McTiernan scrapped it and decided to make a more conventional action film, with the sport at the center, but sort of ditching the whole message of a dystopian future. Now, it was a risky move, but remember, right? McTiernan was known for his action films, so quite possibly the MGM studio trusted his vision. In June 2001, McTiernan personally invited Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News to a private test screening. And just like other test screenings for Rollerball, it did not go well. Knowles later said that the movie was intense, brutal, and indeed full of action, but the plot was stupid, characters unlikable, and the action itself was empty and incoherent. He called the film a complete embarrassment and suggested that MGM scrap it and release the original version instead. Now, with other feedback coming in fast and criticizing everything from the action to the costumes, the studio execs started to panic. Remember, right? The production budget alone was $70 million, so not a chump change. In February 2002, the LA Times reported that MGM reacted by delaying the release, ordering reshoots, and what's more important, re-editing the movie to secure a PG-13 rating. And that means trimming the violence and the nudity, which were like the only good things about this mess of a movie. Now, on top of that, some of the early feedback which was leaked included comments, some offensive comments from the studio execs, that the remake was too Asian and the score too Arabic. And because of that, they removed the music by BT or Brian Transo and rescored it with Eric Serra to make it sound more international. All of the above are pieces of information on the internet, a gossip, as I couldn't find official documentation. But McTiernan tried to defend it. He said the movie was set in Kazakhstan, a country in Central Asia, and it tackled themes of corporate manipulation and social commentary. But no deal, it was too late. The studio ordered to change the ending, and around 30 minutes were cut from the final.
And Rollerball, I got in the middle of shooting and they cut the second half of the screenplay. There was a whole lot more to Rollerball.
So Rollerball went from apparently a decent script to a director's mess, and then to an even worse, incomprehensible studio cut when it finally came out in 2002. It was a critical and box office failure. It only made around 26 million, way below its $70 million budget. And that was a production budget, not counting marketing. Okay, I know what you are thinking. It sounds like every other failed project, plenty of similar stories out there. Plenty of shit remakes too.
Okay, power up!
Well, the saga doesn't end here. It starts here. So hit subscribe to support the Polish community, and let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Remember Charles Rowan, the producer mentioned at the beginning? Now, apparently McTiernan became convinced that Rowan wanted to destroy the movie to hamper his vision. That's when Anthony Pellicano came in. Pellicano was an ex-military Hollywood PI, a private investigator and fixer for high-profile clients.
The story of tough-talking private eye Anthony Pellicano, a real-life gumshoe who saw himself as bigger than life, bigger than anything on the big screen.
From people like Chris Rock, Tom Cruise, Whoopi Goldberg, to Bill Clinton and Michael Jackson, Pellicano offered services to those who could afford them, and he used whatever means necessary, and we'll come back to that. So McTiernan got to know Pellicano in 1998 when, according to the LA Times, he hired him to spy on his ex-wife, Donna Dabro, during their divorce proceedings. She said he apparently paid around $100,000 for the services, saying, "I do know that he hired Pellicano in our divorce. I do not know if he wiretapped me." Not only that, but Pellicano allegedly intimidated a witness in a criminal case involving Dabro's son, Ethan, and was hired by McTiernan in that instance too. So they were very well acquainted. Now, back to the Rollerball remake. Even though, according to the people on the team, McTiernan had ultimate control over the direction, but he became paranoid that Charles Rowan wanted to interfere with that. From the 2012 appeal court documents, we learn that he hired his trusted PI, Pellicano, to wiretap the producer and one other person. And in court, it was argued that Rowan discovered it and started investigating the scheme. But that's not what brought it to light. BuzzFeed reported McTiernan's luck ran out because the FBI was investigating Pellicano alone, as part of its larger case into his illegal activities. And John McTiernan and Anthony Pellicano recorded a conversation in which they discussed wiretapping, which the FBI acquired during a raid of his offices.
FBI, open up!
what happened next would be the ultimate downfall of John McTiernan. On the 13th of February 2006, John McTiernan was having dinner at his ranch in Dayton, Wyoming. His phone rang. McTiernan answered, and the caller identified himself as an FBI agent. The caller asked McTiernan about Pelicano, in which the director denied hiring him, or, as one of his lawyers later said, omitted saying he hired him to spy on Charles Rowan. It was a short, innocent call. McTiernan went back to eating his dinner, forgot all about it. Now imagine his surprise when 2 weeks later he was arrested for perjury and lying to an FBI agent. Quoting McTiernan, "I thought he was a reporter. When Arnold Schwarzenegger became a candidate to be a governor of California, I got dozens of phone calls from people pretending to be one sort for law enforcement or another, fishing for some pile of shit about Arnold. You have to talk to them because if you don't, they say so-and-so has no comment." So a simple call became the first domino that would result in a lengthy court case. Lying to an FBI agent is a federal felony, with prison time if convicted. Initially, McTiernan pleaded guilty to making a false statement. He then withdrew his plea, wanting to fight the charge. It resulted in an additional charge of perjury, which McTiernan wanted to appeal and suppress the recorded conversations. And that's where the prosecutor Daniel A. Saunders came into the picture. According to BuzzFeed, McTiernan and his supporters accused Saunders of prosecutorial overreach and personal vendetta. But why? Why would a public prosecutor have something against a Hollywood director? Now that's where it gets crazy. They claim that Saunders was a failed actor who auditioned for Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October, McTiernan movies, but didn't get a role. He never made it in the movie business, so he wanted a payback. And there was even a press release that said an actor finally gets even. Saunders denied all of the above, saying that it was, quote, 100% bullshit and that he never auditioned for the films. He said McTiernan repeatedly lied during the court proceedings. So it wasn't looking good for the director, and he was left with one last option. John McTiernan entered a new guilty plea in 2010. The court sentenced him to 1 year in prison, 3 years of supervised probation, and $100,000 fine. He was still a well-known director at that time. He had a vast network of supporters, with Alec Baldwin saying that the case was an example of a prosecutorial vindictiveness with excessive charges and sentence. Other actors, producers, and directors offered their support. There was even a Facebook page called Free John McTiernan. But the government, well, wasn't convinced.
But after a single phone conversation, he had all that power taken away by the American justice system. He lost his career and reputation, and eventually his freedom.
McTiernan, now in his 60s, received prison number 43029-112 and started serving his sentence at the federal prison camp in Yankton, South Dakota in 2013. And even though the Yankton prison is a minimal security facility housing white-collar criminals, McTiernan's wife told The Guardian that he wasn't coping well. He lost weight, was depressed, and she said that he lost his dignity. But, as it often happens in marriages, wives and husbands tend to view things differently.
As for my legal troubles, I don't want to be an asshole, but it actually was a great experience.
Because in his Guardian interview from 2023, McTiernan said that he had a great time inside. He joined the prison's carpentry crew. He worked on projects that reminded him of his youth, working outside in the sun. He learned how the legal and incarceration systems work and the issues within them. He interviewed his fellow inmates, saying that their stories were amazing and that he plans to publish the material someday, probably. So, quite a different take from his wife. He was released in 2014, serving almost a full year. But our story doesn't end here. What happened to the people involved? Well, the probe into Anthony Pellicano, the notorious Hollywood fixer, ended with him pleading guilty after the FBI raided his office and found explosives, guns, cash, and hundreds of illegally wiretapped recordings. He was convicted on 78 felony counts, including racketeering, wiretapping, and witness tampering. Pellicano went to jail where he spent 15 years, finally being released in 2019 on his 75th birthday. He published a book based on his life, he lost his PI license, and apparently now works on Me Too cases. In 2003, LA Times reported that he had been married at least 6 times, and at that time had 9 children already. The controversial prosecutor Daniel Saunders moved into a private practice at a global law firm. He denies any sort of vengeance against McTiernan, but says that the Pellicano case was a big achievement during his career. And John McTiernan, well, not only did he go to prison, he was also sued by his ex-wife Donna Dabrow for the invasion of privacy and wiretapping in 2006. She dismissed the lawsuit after a decade. But it was another nail in the coffin. McTiernan faced massive financial trouble, declaring Chapter 11 bankruptcy while in prison to stop the banks from taking his Wyoming ranch.
One debt to society later.
With millions of dollars in debt and banks chasing him for loan repayments, he argued that once he's back out, he'll make more movies and repay the creditors.
You have my word, I promise, this is gonna happen, I'm gonna do this for you.
Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. 2002 Rollerball and 2003 Basic, his last 2 movies were massive flops, and Hollywood moved on.
Sure, there were loads of things I could have done better. I agree about that. But I didn't.
In several more recent interviews, he said that he became a persona non grata after his stint in jail and was put on blacklist by the big studios.
I think the Hollywood studios and I parted ways quite a while ago.
He never directed a feature film again, only doing small projects like The Red Dot for Ubisoft to promote Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. After that, he went into fixing scripts or so-called script doctoring, but saying that, quote, I may work again, which is probably wishful thinking at this stage. He still does interviews, lectures, and appearances, though. So what lessons can we take from it all? Hollywood and the entertainment business are not very nice places.
Business is war. It's dog eat dog, rat eat rat. If my competitor were drowning, I'd walk over and I'd put a hose right in his mouth.
And whatever you may think of his actions, the FBI didn't target John McTiernan. He was a casualty of the Pellicano probe, which looked into him because his name came up during their investigation. Now, you may say he deserved it, that bad karma got him in the end. However, one thing is true, everyone loves an underdog. It could be a director, an actor, a YouTuber. We cheer for them, we applaud them, we love them. But one misstep, one bad decision, a flight too close to the sun, and we scrutinize it with satisfaction. And we wait impatiently for the downfall. Because people love drama, and Hollywood and YouTube serve us what we want. And there is always more coming our way. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, which will help us to make more.